Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to it, indeed, Broncos country. How about that? Never any doubt that your Denver Broncos would beat the Tennessee Titans. But for those, I don't call them conspiracy theorists out there, but people that look at the number Las Vegas puts out on a game line, the closing line and the line for most of the week was Broncos 8.5-point favorites. And they, of course, win by 8, 20-12. Now, the defense did exactly what we thought they would. Most people think they're the best defense in football, are certainly on a very short list with the Baltimore Ravens, who, of course, play on Sunday Night Football, the Steelers, who gave up 32 points to Justin Fields, and the Jets, work-in-progress offense. The Texans are a really good defense. The Lions, fully healthy, are going to be good. The Vikings, sure. But this Broncos D is as legit as they come. And against a rookie QB, they made him look like a rookie. It's worth noting, and I got to tip my cap to Nick Kosmider of The Athletic, that for the now 18th time in the last 20 starts since 2020, for a rookie QB making NFL start number 1, whether that's week 1, week 2, week 5, week 10, making their first ever career NFL start on the road, just 2 wins and 18 losses for those rookie QBs, including our own Bo Nix, who played well at times last year in Seattle, but of course lost his first ever NFL start. Cam Ward, you saw a couple throws that were right on the money that his teammates were not helping him out throughout the entire game. Calvin Ridley, who was once a first-round pick and certainly has had his missteps along the way with the mental health, causing him to step away. I'm not saying that's a misstep, but mental health has him step away. Then he gets in trouble for gambling. He finds his way to Jacksonville and now to Tennessee, and still has those top-end traits, but he did not have a good game, and a number of the Titans players not helping their rookie QB out. I talked to a couple of front office execs with the Titans that I know pretty well, and they like their quarterback. He just needs more help, and it's going to take some time. Defense plays hard there for Tennessee, and they certainly made a lot of plays to keep the Broncos in check, but really questionable clock management by former Broncos assistant Brian Callahan, who was an assistant on the Super Bowl 50 team. At the end of the first half, it's less than a minute. You've got the ball backed up against your own end zone. You can just take a knee or run the ball. The Broncos have to burn their timeouts. They won't even have enough time to stop the clock. Instead, you pass it twice with a rookie QB, Cam Ward, not 1 but 2 incompletions. That gives the Broncos the ball back and kind of a short field after a good Mims return. Sets up their first touchdown of the year. Bo Nix pass to Cortland Sutton. So now they're up 10-6, but then a bad play on kick coverage. I don't know why the Broncos don't just kick it out of bounds there. And that sets up a last-second field goal from Joey Sly, which actually left 2 seconds on the clock as well. But 10-9 at the half, and then all that the Titans could muster, even after getting that interception of Bo Nix in the opening drive, on the opening drive of the third quarter, sets up a short field. Vance Joseph's defense, once again, bends, doesn't break, allows just 4 field goals all day. Joey Sly, really good fantasy kicker. If you had him today, he made all 4 of his field goals. Didn't have any extra points because, of course, the Titans did not score a touchdown. We're going to hear from inside the locker room at some point here on this show. I want to hear from you as well, so jump in the chat, and I will try to get to as many comments as I can. But I'll be curious to see what Sean Payton says about Bo Nix, because Bo Nix day was certainly up and down. 25 of 40, 176 yards, the touchdown to Sutton, 2 INTs, the strip sack fumble that, of course, sets up one of those field goals, if memory serves me, right there in the second quarter. And so you also have to look at least 3, if not a 4th play that probably could have all been intercepted as well. And I know that happens a lot in games. There's a reason they say defenders play defense, because if they could catch, they'd be on offense. And I know some defenders have better hands than others, but Bo Nix put the ball in harm's way a little bit. Also, almost a hospital ball to Tyler Bidet in the first quarter on a vertical route where I don't think he even saw the safety coming over. And luckily it was so uncatchable that Bidet doesn't even make an attempt to catch the ball, or who knows, for a kid that got knocked out of the season early last year and had to spend a chunk of it, bulk of it on IR. We could have seen that again. I'm not saying he would have ended up in the hospital, but that was not a great throw from Bo Nix. But then you saw some amazing throws from Bo, like we see a lot, where he puts it on the money to Cortland early on their very first possession. The touchdown pass was as good a throw as you can get. He had a couple to Franklin that were right on the money. And early on, he was distributing the ball just like we saw last year. When Bo was at his best, he was not only finding Cortland Sutton a lot, but finding everyone, including Evan Ingram. We have to see what's going on with Evan Ingram's knee now post-game, is after he makes that first down catch to start the fourth quarter, he then heads to the 10, I guess, and I'm sorry, to continue the drive in the third quarter, rather. He hit the medical tent, and I'm not sure he came back into the game. So something to keep an eye on there with the oft-injured Evan Ingram, who showed how dynamic he was. But getting back to my point about Bo spreading it around, in the first quarter, he threw it to 8 different pass catchers, both R.J. Harvey and Bidet out of the backfield. And Bidet was the only one who didn't haul it in. But Mims, Franklin, Troutman, the aforementioned Ingram, Cortland Sutton, all catching the ball out of the backfield. And so I think that you have to like that about Bo, that he was distributing the ball really well, but you also need to obviously complete those passes and not put your guys in harm's way. So I want to invite anybody who wants to jump in the chat. If you've got comments on this game, go for it, because we certainly would love to react to your thoughts and then what the defense was able to do with the 6 sacks, numerous pressures. They did not have an interception of rookie Cam Ward. So that's something that you would have expected to see and would have maybe bet on, is, does Cam Ward throw the ball to the other team? He was I don't say good, because it's hard to say a kid's good when you're just 12 of 28, but some of those throws were on the money, and he just didn't get any help. Our own Jesse Montano weighs in on the chat. I guess he's just giving me this question from X. I thought Jesse was just throwing me a question. But this is from X, formerly Twitter. What grade would you give the week 1 performance from Denver? When you get a win, it's hard to give anything, I guess, below a B-. And I think that's because you got an A+ effort from the defense and a C- effort from the offense, to maybe even D+. They didn't kill themselves with penalties. And that was something where Tennessee, 13 times they were penalized, and they were really undisciplined a year ago. That's something that Brian Callahan really has to continue to work on. They shot themselves in the foot a lot last year, and they really helped the Broncos out, including on that final drive. The Broncos held the ball for more than 6 minutes, thanks to, in part, Jeffrey Simmons, the best player on the Titans, who gets a personal foul penalty. It wasn't the most egregious personal foul, but we did see him, shove his teammate, who already had Marvin Mims in his grasp, to the ground, and thus you had that 15-yarder that allowed them to extend that drive. And so the 13 penalties compared to just 6 for the Broncos, just 45 yards. I think Sean Payton, you don't want to ever have any penalties, but I think he'll take that. We do have a couple of comments here from Reporte 5280. Do you think Bo was having issues because he changed his footwork technique, or just week 1 jitters? I'll say this about Bo Nix. I don't think he has week 1 jitters. I'm not saying he's not one of those guys, and I think he might have even said it this week. You always get nervous. I think Tom Brady said that, and Peyton Manning. Guys like that have talked about before every game there's butterflies and excitement. I think that he was just a little off the mark, and maybe it is as simple as, and I say simple, but maybe it is related to changing his footwork a little bit. But this is not a great team they played. There was not tremendous pressure. There was some good pressure at times. Bo just felt a little off, and I don't know if some of it is having more command of the offense. I know this is going to sound weird, but because of that, it's not as, I don't say handcuffed, but it's like, you're going to have this read and that read. Let's keep it simple, versus, hey, the whole field's yours. You can run, you can throw it, you can check to whatever you need to check to. And I saw where Drew Brees the other day was interviewed and said that Sean Payton will give Bo Nix as much freedom and control of the offense as he can handle. He will vary it and add as much to it as possible, as long as he thinks Bo can handle it. And so there's a chance that so much is available to him that I don't say he's overthinking things, but you look at the the pick in the third quarter that I think was obviously the worst throw of all the throws he made all day. Both of the defenders were in a better position than the wideout was. And so I think, he's going to talk about wanting to have it back. I think there were a couple times he could have stepped up and ran and he ended up throwing it once or twice with some success. But I think other times it wasn't the best throw. And so Fernando wants to know, is it the play calling? I don't know, but there's a chance that Sean and Bo weren't in rhythm together. But keep these comments coming. My man Kenny, aka Kenzo's Customs, one, good to hear from you, bud. Hope your back's feeling better. But hey, BK, defense looks solid, as Kenny says. Offense cleaning up to do, but great to get the W. You can never complain about a win in the NFL, no matter how it looks. And this was a bad team, certainly a team that's rebuilding. I don't think Tennessee's the worst team in football this year. I don't think they will be. I don't know if they're going to win a lot of games, but I think the Titans will be competitive in most games. I think the defense will continue to get better. I think Pollard will have another solid year as long as he can stay healthy. And I think you'll see progress from Cam Ward, even if this was a weak quarterback draft. And we're not going to get into all the Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel and everything else, but you saw how that draft unfolded. As one member of the Titans coaching staff told me when I talked to him in the offseason, they don't care about all the quarterbacks in the draft. They just need their guy to be good. and I think you saw just some snippets of that. And so I think that ultimately, as they build, it won't be Cam Ward's fault if they only win 3 or 4 games. But you took care of business. So yeah, the offense definitely, they've got more than cleaning up to do, Kenny. Honestly, they've got to figure out a way to establish a rhythm, because there were a couple too many 3-and-outs, and they were at one point 6 of 12 on third down. They finished 6 of 15. If you're north of 40%, and my math isn't good enough to know if that's it's got to be close to 40%. Not very good. Now, the other side of the ball, they're going to have the best statistically without looking at the rest of the league and the other 15 games that we'll have by the end of the weekend. 2 for 14 on third down is going to be pretty darn close to the best third down defense in the league in week 1. And that's what you should do against a rookie QB and against an offense that's a work in progress. Everything has history tells us all the big extension guys made plays, and that's a good sign. And absolutely, whether it was Cortland Sutton, when the ball's thrown to him, other than on that third down where had he just stuck the ball out, the challenge wouldn't have needed to be successful by Brian Callahan or need to be made. But Court with a big touchdown catch, big catch on the first drive, and a big day. Court on the day finishes 6 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. I think that's a solid start for Cortland Sutton. Troy Franklin, 4 catches, 44 yards. He's the one that's on the rise. And if Evan Ingram's out for a while, that makes me think Troy Franklin's an even better fantasy pickup if you don't already have him. I have him stashed on a couple teams, but you look at what he did, then you talk about, I say, look at what he, me and Cortland, then you talk about Zach Allen, Nick Benito, guys that all got paid. Nick Benito, of course, stealing a sack from Jonathan Cooper to some degree, but living in the backfield, made a great play in run defense. And it was something that Vance Joseph talked about earlier this week, where he said, Nick Benito has better instincts than anyone he's ever coached. And you need to add to that list of people he's coached if you're keeping score at home, or look on that list. Von Miller is on that list, as is J.J. Watt. And we could go through a couple more. Guys like Budda Baker, guys like Patrick Peterson, who's likely going to be a candidate for the Hall of Fame, Aqib Talib, Chris Harris. And we could go down the list of really great defenders that VJ's been around. But to say that Nick Benito has the best instincts of anyone he's ever coached, that's saying something. And he may just mean up front, but even still, just put Von Miller and J.J. Watt into the conversation. Take the DBs out of it. Take PS2 out of it. You can see it, and you see it all the time, that while Benito's still not the most stout, and if you're going to pick between he and Cooper in terms of who you're going to run to, the fact that he can jump the play and can anticipate where it's going. And you just have to look to last year against both the Browns and the Colts, those picks in the backfield. One was technically a fumble recovery, but making the plays on the ball that led to scores, or that he took back for scores. Those aren't normal plays. We didn't see J.J. Watt do that for as great as Von Miller was. We didn't see Von do that. That is something that's inherent, that you can't coach, you can't teach. And so it's a credit that he's able to get to the ball as quickly as he can and anticipate. But I think another thing you have to be excited about is everybody that had a sack, including Jaquan McMillan on that last strip sack, but Jonah Ellis getting in on the act. And as we go down the list, who was else? Zach Allen, I think, had one. JFM. Oh, I'm sorry. Zach Allen, J-Mac, Jonathan Cooper got himself one as well. So spreading it around, then Sternat, who looked like he was shot out of a cannon a couple of times. That's the one thing about Sternat. He's not highly paid, but he's paid enough that he wanted to come back, and they brought him back. I think it's shy of $2 million, maybe with some incentives in there. But with Dre Greenlaw now out at least a game, if not a couple more, and we'll know how bad they think Dre's quad is if they send him to IR. But with Sternad, who started 15 games last year, I guess Cody Barton and Alex Singleton were there all year, and then Sternad comes in when Alex goes down in that Tampa game. So 14 games because Tampa was week 3. That's invaluable to have a guy like that can step in. And so you saw Sternad make plays as well. Looking at some more of the comments, we already talked about the play calling, but 5v5 pod. Are you worried about Bo disappointing preseason, underwhelming week 1? Well, it's funny because Sean talked about show me examples of sophomore slumps. And Sean's not going to concede at all that Bo is about to experience a sophomore slump or that there's something going on there. But he clearly wasn't in sync and in rhythm all day. And some of those throws that could have been intercepted, I would certainly be worried about to some degree, because you've got to give your team the best chance to keep moving the ball down the field, obviously, and against better defenses. And the Titans, I think, have a couple good players. I mentioned Jeffrey Simmons. I think Hooker as a safety is a really good player. A healthy L'Jarius Sneed's different. He barely played. And as a result, the kids in behind him kept getting a bunch of penalties. But against a better defense like the Colts have, and like you're going to see certainly against the Chargers in week 3, a reworked Bengals defense, it can't be worse than it was last year. And then when you get into the meat of the schedule, Cowboys defense has some playmakers. The Giants certainly have playmakers. You're not going to have the same margin for error. That's the thing about this. That's why Sean Payton's going for it on 4th and 2 on the minus side of the 50. And so I think that you can try some things here, but he has got to be more dialed in. The one thing we'll say about Bo Nix is he's not just going to rest on his laurels. He's not going to be happy with this. And we'll hopefully get to hear from him in his post-game comments. I know Sean Payton just got finished done talking. But I think it's one of those things where let's revisit Bo. We have to do it week to week because he's the quarterback. But I will be hard-pressed to think that he ends up going 24 of 38 next week and has 5 to 6 throws that should be intercepted. Obviously, 2 were intercepted. And even the fumble on the strip sack was a bit surprising. Bo's ball protection, ball security has been one of his strongest attributes. It was outstanding at Oregon. It was actually even pretty good at Auburn. One year, I think he had close to 10 picks, maybe a second year there, but otherwise it was like 2 picks, 4 picks, hardly any fumbles. He didn't hardly take any sacks, and he didn't today. I think he was only sacked the one time. Now he did fumble on that sack. So I think that's ultimately a good thing that the O-line held up. I don't think the O-line looked great. Had a couple silly penalties. Ben Powers had a hold on what would have been a first down, and then there was illegal man downfield on Wattenberg one time. But again, when you get out of the day with just 6 penalties, especially when your opponent commits 13, you're doing something that's pretty good. Sean Payton did say post-game, it was good to finally be a little more efficient in the second half than in the first half. Yeah, it was. I'm snapping, but it was the opposite of snapping. It was drives stalling in the second half, or in the first half rather. And in the second half, they were able to extend it. I think ultimately at the end of the game is really, if I go back to look at the exact time here in the fourth, they talk about 4-minute offense. So we know about 2-minute offense. Well, your 4-minute offense is essentially, if you've got the lead, you want to hold on to it from the 4-minute mark until the end of the game. And so the Broncos actually got the ball back as I look here on the clock with, why can I read this? I know reading is always great on video, but it was north of 4 minutes. It was north of 6 minutes when they got it back. Here you go. It was at the 6-minute. God, there was a lot of penalties. Yeah, right around the 6.5 minute mark. It was impressive to see them run that 4-minute offense for 6.5 minutes. Again, Jeffrey Simmons helping them and getting a conversion, but that was good to see to close the game out. There was a question from Facebook, thoughts on Riley Moss, and I'm glad that I was asked about this because I commented in the first half. I said something to Nate Jackson in the press box. I was sitting next to my pal D-Mac from Altitude Radio. Riley Moss had the best game, I think, of anyone. I'll be curious to see. I don't know if he gets a game ball because I don't know if he made a a marquee play. I think we'll probably see game balls for maybe RJ Harvey on that 50-yard run, and we can talk about that here in a second. I'm trying to think who they'll give game balls to. Jahdae Barron with that fumble recovery, he probably doesn't get a game ball for that, but he might get to keep that ball, first ever takeaway on defense. The Broncos and most NFL teams, when a player makes a big play, a pick six, first career touchdown, whatever it may be, milestone, they give them the ball, they take the ball, they paint it and like inscribe what the accomplishment was. But for my money, Riley Moss had the best game of anyone. Several breakups, and he might have made the save for the takeaways and the actual sacks, but the coolest play that we saw on defense all day, and that was on Calvin Ridley's only catch of the first half. It's on a swing pass, and he's got his teammate blocking, and Riley blows up the receiver into Calvin Ridley for basically a 1-yard gain on what could have been a big hit if, a big hitter in terms of the play, if the receiver can kick Riley Moss out. But Riley, who talked about adding weight this year, you saw it because he drove through that defender, or drove through the blocker into Calvin Ridley. And I think that was perhaps the best play that we saw all day. And Riley, a couple big breakups, really in back-to-back plays, one on the east sideline and one on the west sideline, and you're looking for flags and you realize his timing was perfect. He got to the ball. And if you've been following what we've been doing in the offseason or some of the stuff we talked about in preseason, I asked Vance Joseph, I asked Riley Moss, I asked Pat Surtain in passing, and maybe even on the box, but was the draft pick, and Sean Payton, was the draft pick of Jahdae Barron not a wake-up call, but did you see a increase in the level of play? Did it motivate Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan? And Sean started to give me like this politically correct, like, oh, you'll see that at every position. But that's not how the world works. That's not how sports works. They can draft somebody in that plays the same spot as you, and guys will sometimes wilt. They don't always rise to the moment. They don't play as well. It's in their head, or they just aren't as good, and then they end up losing their spot either way. Riley Moss showed us again today that even with Barron here, he's not conceding that outside spot. And they were rotating sides because Pat Surtain was traveling with Ridley. I know Ridley had one big catch, but that was when they were in a zone defense. But otherwise, Ridley did absolutely nothing. And Riley Moss was, following around the number 2 and 3 receivers. But the point is, Riley Moss is not coming off the field anytime soon. McMillan and Barron, they're in a little bit more of a competition. I thought McMillan had a really good preseason. He gets that strip sack at the very end of the game, and Barron comes up with the ball. So, I guess we didn't, and I can't wait to hear what Sean says about this. The final minute of the game, the last play, they'd run out of timeouts. Why on 4th down do you take a delay game and then let Bo just toss it up to Marvin Mims? Cortland Sutton was open on the crosser, but that gives them the ball back around the 40 with 59 seconds left. I guess they got the ball at the 36. I would have liked to seen them just kick a field goal, but if you miss that field goal, then all of a sudden you got the ball way closer to midfield. Sean Payton said, we aren't going to have a growth meter every week. That's crazy. Sean, you can say what you want. This is Denver. They've wanted a franchise quarterback, a young franchise quarterback, certainly since Peyton Manning retired. But after John Elway retired, they never really had it. We had our guy, Jake the Snake, and you need to check out Jake and Nate Jackson with the Cold Tub, which I believe comes your way Mondays starting tomorrow. But Snake certainly not young when he got here. You draft Jay Cutler in the first round. We know how that ended. After the Peyton Manning, well, you had Tim Tebow as well in there. After the Peyton Manning experience, though, you then draft Paxton Lynch, and we know how that's gone. And every quarterback since then, it hasn't worked out. So you want this guy. There's a reason there are number 10 jerseys everywhere. I've gone to a couple sporting goods stores plus the Broncos team store. You can see a 10 jersey in every color, in orange, in blue, in white, and throwback. And you talk to the people with the team. The Bo Nix jersey is the most popular jersey, and it's not close. But I'm sorry, Sean, unless he comes out and plays where we don't need to give him a growth meter. If he goes out and he was 24 of 38. If it's not for 115 or 150 yards, but for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns and not 2 interceptions, there is no growth meter. Or if they run the ball even more effectively, and we had a comment a little earlier, it says, look, when you run the ball, look what happens. They still only carry the ball 18 times. And I guess Bo, because he threw the ball, he had 0 carries. Now that you look at it, Bo finished Yeah, none of those. Oh, I'm sorry. No, 8 carries, 18 yards. Let's do quick math. 8 and 16. That gets you to 24 and 6. So 30 carries. 30 carries against 40 pass attempts plus a sack. So 41 to 30 pass plays to run plays. All right, you'll take that. A lot of it did have to do with kind of the way the game script went. And so I think that you'll take that closer balance, but it took some doing for Sean to get there, because I saw where somebody tweeted to start the game, it was 14 passes to 3 runs. So Sean can't get out his own way there. This from my pal Brian, who goes by Media Critic here on YouTube. BK, the Broncos need more production out of Bo Nix. How does that transpire? I think it's a comfort level thing, and it's going to be a work in progress with Bo and with Sean and the whole offensive staff, with Joe Lombardi, with Pete Carmichael, with Davis Webb. I don't think Bo's going to be this bad the rest of the year, but he certainly wasn't good today. Now, Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense, and Joe Burrow is coming off an MVP level season where he was as good as any quarterback in the league. Didn't help that they didn't make the playoffs. He looked great against the Broncos, especially when you factor in overtime. And we're going to see that team in 4 weeks. The Browns are the first team, maybe in NFL history, they allowed 7 yards of total offense to the Bengals in the second half. So our pal Shelby Harris and company, they came to play in a 17-16 loss. You hold that high-powered Bengals offense led by Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and company, and obviously Chase Brown, who scored, I know, the first touchdown of the game, to 7 yards in the second half. You're doing something right, and your offense needs to be better. Nobody's over here, and I get Joe Burrow's resume is certainly far greater than where Bo Nix is right now. So I'm not going to make excuses for Bo Nix. I'm not just going to say, though, that the way you play in week 1 is the way the season's going to go. Did Patrick Mahomes look awesome? I know he made an amazing throw late, but did he look awesome against the Chargers on Friday night? Not really. Jalen Hurts ran well, but he wasn't carving up the Cowboys defense. Dak Prescott had some big time throws. And, I'm just thinking of some of the bigger games that people saw, but Russell Wilson looked like the Russell Wilson we've seen of late. Aaron Rodgers at times looked good. I'm just saying, and Daniel Jones, as I mentioned, if you were catching off the top, Daniel Jones, first quarterback since the turn of the century where they scored on every possession of the game. And I don't know if I did mention that. Maybe I mentioned it off air to my crew here. And shout out, by the way, to Jesse and Hannah and Blake for helping me get on air and talk to you guys. But it's going to be a different beast next week if that's what you're going to get from Daniel Jones and company than what you saw with the Colts last year and Anthony Richardson and maybe what you were expecting. And when they go to Indy, it's not going to be easy. We know how good Jonathan Taylor is. They got playmakers on defense. They got playmakers on offense as well. 176-yard passing on 40 attempts isn't going to cut it. Yeah, you're right. That's what I was saying, Brian. I guess I didn't. Yeah, 25 of 40, 176. That's the final numbers. Tyler Patterson adds 2 INTs and a fumble. Let's see this, though, from Next Gen Stats. Nick Bonito, who just got paid, career high 9 pressures. And so, again, only 6 sacks, but 9 pressures on 22 pass rush snaps, 5 quick pressures under 2.5 seconds, and a sack in their week 1 win. A sack, again, courtesy of Jonathan Cooper. So with that new extension, you see what he's able to do. And so it was obviously, I think, a good deal. I talked to some people with the team too, but it was a good deal for Nick Bonito and a good deal for the Broncos to get that extension done. On average, if he hits the bonuses and gets to that $30 million a year mark, that's the 6th highest paid edge rusher on average annual value. We're not going to talk about total contract. It's on paper almost $20 million less a year than Micah Parsons without the incentives. And I don't think there's that big of a gap between Bonito and Parsons, especially with what we're seeing right now from Bonito. We'll see. I didn't see what Parsons did in the Packers. I want to say win over the Lions. They were kicking the crap out of them. Did they hold on for that win, GB, as I scroll across here? Why can't I find? Oh, they beat Detroit. Yeah, 27-13. So taking back control at Lambeau. And so I think that Nick Bonito showing why you paid him that money. You're getting him. He wanted, it's kind of money in hand. He wanted money now because here's the other thing. He could go out and blow a leg, blow a knee out in one of these early games. And even though the team can keep him and franchise him, he's not going to get top end money. He got more money than I'm guessing at various points of his life he ever thought about having. generational type wealth, 70 million guaranteed, and he took it. And it's funny because he has the same agent as Pat Surtain, Tory Dandy, who's with Athletes First, and Tory negotiates that deal for Pat a year ago. And then by the end of the summer, Pat is the 5th or 6th highest paid corner, which is crazy because he's the best defensive player in football and certainly the best corner. And then Nick gets his deal done early, but we'll see when Aiden Hutchinson signs a new deal and any other edge guys. Now, there aren't a bunch coming that are going to push the market up necessarily. I guess we'll see. But I think that ultimately a good deal on both sides. And that was a good note there from Next Gen Stats. Jesse, I'll let you know too, one of our special guests, the one I already mentioned about the defense, if you reach out to him, and I guess we can even send him the link, he can potentially join us, but I can send it just the same, I suppose. Either way, that'll be cool if he can get to us. Brian appreciates that I can understand the salary cap. Yeah, Tyler, I get that you're stuck on he had those 2 INTs, so understandable. But here, I can just do this right now and send it to my man, and maybe we'll have a special guest. We're going to hear from Sean Payton, and I think we'll hear from Bo Nix as well, hopefully before we get out of here, but want to hear from you as we look at what the Broncos were able to do. And I know it wasn't sexy necessarily, but Will Lutz continues to show his worth. And I guess it is worth looking at too, just stats wise. The rookie punter who was so scrutinized, 3 punts, average 48 yards. I think you'll take that. Is that the best ever? Probably not, but is it good enough? Yeah, I think so. I think if you can get 48 yards when they average 49.4 on 8 punts. Crawshaw, the rookie draft pick out of Florida, the Aussie, his first punt was great. And then the other ones too, part of the reason the average was what it was because he pinned him inside the 15, which is what you're asking for. So could he have had a couple more yards? Maybe. He did exactly what you needed. But right now, let's hear from the head coach of the Denver Broncos, and let's see what Sean Payton had to say post-game.
There's so many different things that can go into that first game. It's a game that involves some adjustments, maybe more than normal. Man, I thought our defense was outstanding in the second half, and then offensively, the key was us being able to stick with the run game and get that going in the second half. And that was a big reason why the turnovers didn't bite us, because we obviously lost the turnover battle, but we only gave up 3 points off those turnovers. So there'll be a lot for us to correct and work on. Looking at the film tomorrow, and then we'll get ready. But I think tomorrow in our league is extremely important. These next 3 or 4 Mondays, and how quickly we can accelerate the learning curve, make the corrections. It'll be critical. Any questions?
I mean, you mentioned the defense, but just to be in adverse situations as many times as they were.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, playing with confidence. I think they were 2 of something on third down. I think they had 2 first downs in the second half. So they were outstanding.
Coach, to your left, you mentioned the run game there. Did you see signs that they were close to popping before that?
Yeah, look, and we've got to look closely at what we're doing, and as coaches, look closely at what our strengths are. But man, it was good to finally be a little bit more efficient in the second half than in the first half.
Hi, Sean. Can you take us that 4th and 8 play late in the game? What was the thinking on going for it there?
So you ready? We had plenty of time to think about it. We're playing great defense. Kick block, is a scoop, and it's one thing. It's a 54-yard field goal. I don't think we're going to punt it. And I felt strongly, I had to play. And, we knew they would be in a cover 0 look. I want to see the protection. And we got the look we were expecting. We'll see the film, but, I've got plenty of confidence in the distance relative to the kick. But the way we're playing defensively, you have to look at man, the quickest way for them to take the ball 64 yards would be, a scoop and score, and I didn't want that to happen. So we had a lot of time to think about it. I felt real good about a call. And when you have a call you like, we just we're close.
Yeah, Sean, could you just sum up Bo's performance today?
Well, we won. That's the first thing. I thought, I thought he hung in there. He battled, made some critical plays for us in the second half. And so obviously he'll be disappointed with the turnovers, but it was a gutsy performance, and we got and it's pretty usual week one, a lot of different looks maybe that you hadn't seen normally or scouted normally for relative to their coverages. But overall his job is to lead us to scores. I thought he played real well in the second half, and we won the game.
Coach, over here, you talked about how well the defense played specifically in the second half. They gave up -2, or the Titans had -2 net yards in the second half. What was the difference, and what really stood out about their performance in the second half?
I felt like in the first half, we settled in. They had a couple plays. We have them wrapped up, and he does a good job of finding the running back, and we drop coverage, on a long gain. And then pretty soon, you settle in as to what you're seeing, what they're doing, and thought we covered them well. I thought we rushed them well. And more importantly, and we knew with, Brian Callahan, his father, Bill, I've worked with, those guys are real good with their run game plan. And that was going to be the most important thing. They had a little stretch where they hit a few runs, but that run game differential mattered ultimately.
Coach, when you looked at did you look at the numbers at the first half in terms of the balanced pass run, and was that why? Because you said you were committed.
I didn't have a chance to look at the numbers. We were told we had a rain delay, and then so you go in and tell the players there's going to be a lightning delay, and then they walked in and said, no, you're coming out now. And so some of the players, were getting out of. I mean, it was a little bit of a cluster, at halftime.
So you didn't say like, I'm going to commit more to the run.
No, I knew where we were at, run pass wise. I was well aware of it. But yeah, I mean, look, there's a way to go in playing a game, and we had a good plan going in. Obviously, look, it wasn't perfect. We're going to look closely at ourselves, and tomorrow's debrief of this game, all of us will learn something.
Sean, on that, looked like just kind of in that first half, some operational, issues offensively in terms of
formation. I think we had the one delay game, right?
Yeah, and then, there's a time where Bo kind of hand off wrong side, JK on the strip sack. Like, did you notice those sorts of?
Yeah, I'll have to see the film. I mean, operationally, I didn't, I think, look, we were late with one where they, blew the whistle quick on us, and we got called for a delay. I'll be better. But, yeah, listen, it was a good win.
Sean, explosive runs from your running backs was something you guys needed more of after last year. To see RJ kind of break one in his first start, what just did you like about his play today?
I just mentioned it. It was great to see those guys get the carries and, keep pounding. We had a couple big ones there in the second half that really changed field positions, and also a couple big plays that kept the clock moving. So we converted some third downs, more obviously in the second half. But we'll look at the tape.
Coach, you mentioned you liked Bo's guts and the resilience in his performance. We've talked so much about growth with him from year one to year two. Where did you see growth in his performance today?
Here's the thing, though, and I appreciate the question, but we're not going to have a growth meter each week, in year two. All right? He's in his second year. I love the player. All right, I get a chance to see him every day. All right, we can win. He can be a huge reason why we win games. And so we're not going to have that weekly meter. And so that's the first refused growth meter in week one. I mean, that's crazy. Anybody else?
Yeah, too, right? Just wondering if you got them playing with Cam Ward the way you expected, or did
I think there was a point in that game where it became one-dimensional. And, somewhere in the fourth quarter, earlier in the fourth quarter than they would have liked, and that's always hard for any quarterback. And once they were one-dimensional, our pass rush did a great job. I don't know how many sacks we had, 7, 6. So that we felt that was one of the keys to victory is obviously, especially a young quarterback, his greatest friend can be a run game. And so if we were able to keep him in the pocket and force him to try to beat us, we felt we'd take advantage of that, and that would play into our hands. So I thought our pass rush and coverage was great.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
There you go. Typical Sean Payton post game, especially after wins. He can seem irritated, oftentimes just with the line of questioning, even though I think it's certainly fair. The criticisms, if you will, or the observations that Bo Nix didn't have his best game. Sean wasn't going to spend a lot of time dissecting what went wrong. And on his Monday conference call, which is a Zoom phone call, it's not even him on a screen or us in front of him in a press conference setting. He can be even shorter after a win. So I'll be curious to see after he watches the film in the morning and joins us. Typically it's around 10, 11 o'clock for anywhere from 4 to 10 minutes max, what he says about Bo's game, and Wednesday when we get to talk to him again on the podium after Wednesday's practice. Sean, as you heard him say there at the end, he gets to see the player every day. He's in year 2. He clearly doesn't want to have a growth meter, but as I talked about earlier, that's tough, Sean. Sorry, this is the world we live in. Until he's week in, week out, a perennial star QB. And there's only a handful of those that are, you reach a threshold where you quit getting questioned. But it's almost never in year 2. I didn't see the final score or the final stats for Jaden Daniels, even though I have him on a couple fantasy teams. They win 21-6. Just for fun, I'll look it up. He's 19 of 30. That's not great. 233 yards. And then he obviously, I'm sure, used his legs a little bit and ran it for another 68 yards and 11 carries. Okay, that's pretty dynamic. We get that. But point is, he's in year 2. We're going to see Caleb Williams on Monday Night Football in year 2 and understand that these guys, until they reach the, I guess, Pro Bowl level, multiple Pro Bowl level type career, and that comes usually in year 3, year 4, you're going to get an evaluation and some sort of gauge on where they are, especially if he doesn't come out and play great. Now, Jaden Daniels' numbers weren't lights out. They win 21-6. The Giants don't look very good at all. They'll be calling for Jackson Dart sooner than later. They're in New York. And the thing with Bo Nix is he doesn't have even that kind of game. I didn't see how many interceptions Daniels threw, if any. But the point being, because Bo had those 2 interceptions, the fumble and pedestrian numbers to really not very good numbers, you're going to get that criticism. And so I think that's totally fair, and it will continue. If Bo goes on a great run, and we saw that in stretches last year, but if he goes out next week and is north of 250 yards passing, 2+ touchdowns, uses his legs for a couple big runs, doesn't take terrible sacks, doesn't fumble, doesn't throw egregious interceptions, because that's the thing. It's one thing to fit it into a tight window, the ball gets bobbled, or you hit a guy on a crosser, he doesn't catch it, or guys running the ball pops up, whatever. You do that, that's not always on the quarterback. Those interceptions today, especially the second one, are 100% on the quarterback unless the route was completely wrong. And then I guess you have to cut him some slack. But in general, I'm saying it wasn't a ball that was tipped in the air and then brought down or whatever, or some great play where they take it out of the receiver's hands, whatever it may be. And so until Bo strings together a bunch of games like that, like he did throughout a good chunk of last season, there's going to be questions about where he and this offense are, because 20 points against the Titans, knowing that they couldn't score at all, probably isn't good enough. And those turnovers cost you, even if they didn't necessarily cost you huge in terms of the score, they cost you the chance to stay on the field, get your offense clicking. You heard Sean Payton talk about the balance of run to pass and how good that ended up, and how he was certainly aware of it. You heard Troy talking to him about, was he aware at halftime of the ratio? That's one thing we know about Sean Payton. There aren't too many trends or numbers in his game that he's not keeping track of. And also, I hadn't tracked it that closely, and I ran from the stadium over here to our studio just around the corner from Empower Field at Mile High. But 2 yards in the second half, or negative 2 yards in the second half for that defense, is outstanding. And you heard Sean Payton talk about how well the defense was playing, and as he started to explain why at that 59-second mark, they're at the 35-yard line. They don't want to punt from there, because if you don't hit it right, it's a touchback. That goes to the 20 anyway. You don't want to kick the field goal because a block and a scoop and a score, or just a long miss and they get the ball 8 yards back. So that would have been almost to the 50, 43, 44-yard line. So I understand what he's thinking. And he said he liked the play. Well, I'm sure that's another one Bo wants to have back, because he throws it to Marvin Mims on the left crosser. They were in zero coverage, which is everyone's in man across the board. And Cortland is running wide open the other way. So I think that it's one that Bo Nix will like to have back. And I'm sure when we hear from Bo here shortly, we'll know that exactly where he wants to focus this week as they get ready for a good Colts team. And that Bo Nix saying the same thing his head coach said. We felt like a good play court was probably open. No, there's nothing probable about that, Bo. Whether you see it tonight on your phone, or on the car ride home, or at dinner, or if you flip the film on because you want to just see where it's at to be ahead of the morning. And I don't know how Bo operates. Every quarterback's different. I know Peyton Manning on Sundays after games, he took the night off. He wasn't focused on the game until Monday morning. Monday morning rolled around, and Peyton Manning was checking in on the game, but he was having dinner. As he would tell us, he was having a few Bud Lights. And so I don't know what Bo's post-game plans are in general. I don't know. I'm saying, like, does he go to dinner with his wife and friends and family that's in town? Or does he watch the game in the car on the way to dinner? I don't know. But when he watches that, there's no probably about that, Bo. Cortland Sutton was wide open. And I don't know what happened to the DB. I'd have to rewatch that. But, they showed it a couple times with the replay, and Mims was covered, and he leads them. Mims still had some separation, but Cortland was wide open. But I'm mostly curious just to hear how Bo characterized his day and what he thought about those interceptions, as well as the strip sack, and what was working and what wasn't, and what he thinks they can build on, because this will be a different animal in Indy. It's worth noting, if you're looking forward to that game and you haven't checked the schedule, that is an afternoon game. Even though it's an East Coast team, that will be another 2:05 kickoff. The Broncos only have 2 early games all season, barring some sort of change late in the year where they might get flexed into an early game. I don't know why they would. They are playing, and because they're playing in California, obviously, against the Chargers, they're playing in Vegas. When they play the Chiefs, that's on Christmas. When they play the Bengals, that's here on Monday night. That would have been an early game. They host the Jags. When they play the Commanders, that's a Sunday night football game. They're playing late games almost all year, except for when they go to Houston in early November, and in week 5 when they're in Philly. And so you don't have to worry about any other East Coast 11 o'clock kicks. Of course, the London kick will be 7:30. Bo, when talking about the fumble, he said he should have had 2 hands on the ball in the pocket. Sure, that's not always realistic, though. As you're moving around and maneuvering, I want to see the replay of that too. I'm not gonna beat Bo up on that too badly. PS2, who also spoke at the podium, said that the front's going to do what they are going to do, and that is eat all the time, and they certainly did. We put up that stat earlier from Next Gen Stats about 22 pressures alone, or in 22 snaps. Was it 9 pressures from Benito? Was that whatever it was? It was awesome. 9 pressures on just 22 pass rushes. So 1 out of every 2, basically, a little less than that. As well as 5 quick pressures, which are under 2.5 seconds. Nick Benito, I was talking about his contract a little earlier. Nick Benito, just like PS2, maybe giving the Broncos a bargain. I don't mean giving him a bargain with the deal he signed, but if he plays like that for the next 16 games, you're talking about another Defensive Player of the Year candidate, which he was, another top 5 sack kind of guy, a guy who's a first or second team All-Pro like he was, and they will be getting him at a bargain, just like they're getting Pat Surtain at a bargain. He was the highest paid corner of all time for like a week. And then Jalen Ramsey's average annual value when he got a raise for some reason by the Dolphins last year. That ticked him above, and then it's gone up since then. Stingley, I think, is making $30 million a year, and there's no reason that Pat should be making 24 and Stingley is making just 32. I don't know if do we have Bo Nix? Are we going to get to actually see some of Bo Nix? I don't know if he's in there or not. But either way, Bo will have his hands full. And speaking of those Colts, we don't want to spend too much time on a full preview because we have all week to do that, of course. But I guess Miami did muster some points. Last I saw it was 30-0, but they won 33-8. So the Dolphins' lone score came on Tua pass to Devon Achane with 3.5 minutes left, and that was not going to change that fate. And as I mentioned, you may not have heard it, the Colts had 0 punts. They scored on every possession today, and so it's good work if you can get it for their punter. And it's also worth noting, because the Dolphins were so bad, they only punted it once. The Broncos are, as my man Brian, aka Media Critic, wants to know, should the Broncos be favored? They are. They're 2.5-point favorites. I looked at the early line, went to FanDuel Sportsbook in honor of our pal Liv, who works with FanDuel, and they are 2.5-point favorites at the Colts. I don't have a problem with it because I've seen Daniel Jones up close. I know he's at this point more competent as an NFL quarterback than Cam Ward. I'm not saying Cam Ward's incompetent, but you go back to that play right before halftime. You can't just throw those in the dirt. You're almost better off eating it, and you don't want to get sacked up against the goal line, but you need completions there, or you need run plays, run forward, because that just stopped the clock, gave the Broncos the ball back, and allowed them to score their first of their 2 TDs. Daniel Jones, in theory, isn't going to make those kinds of plays. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is the Danny Dimes we saw a couple of years ago, but Daniel Jones is better, certainly, than where Anthony Richardson is, which is why he won the job with the Colts. It's also worth noting, Davis Webb, Broncos QB coach. I know that we spend a lot of time talking about whether coaches and players that have been around other players have an insight, or other teams. And Sean Payton will often downplay it. But on Wednesday, because I'm not going to ask him tomorrow, but on Wednesday, I'm going to ask him about Davis Webb's knowledge of Daniel Jones. Because for those who don't know, Broncos QB coach Davis Webb, he's now in year 3. He came in with Sean Payton as his QB coach in year 1, walked straight off the football field. But that year, so the end of the 2022 season, the Giants were locked into their playoff spot as, I guess, a wild card. Davis Webb started the final game of the year. Week 18, game 17, because he was Daniel Jones' backup all year. And we've heard stories about Davis on Fridays would take Daniel Jones into the Giants indoor and go through the whole game plan and walk through it with them, just like a coach could and might do. He was an extra coach. He did the same thing, I think, with Josh Allen in Buffalo early in Josh's career. And so, new system, obviously, with Daniel Jones, who, once he was let go by the Giants, spent some time hanging out behind Sam Darnold last year in Minnesota and being around Kevin O'Connell, but now with Shane Steichen and what they're trying to do there. Certainly he's got Jonathan Taylor. He's got Michael Pittman Jr. He's got Downs. He's got the big tight end, Mo Alley Cox. It's not going to be a walk in the park for the Broncos defense, but I'll be curious to see how much institutional knowledge Davis Webb has of Daniel Jones and how he can relate that to Vance Joseph and the defensive staff. This from Troy Rank, as he's characterizing what Bo Nix said, that Bo Nix said he was too aggressive on his 2 picks. He has to be smarter. We talk about too aggressive. I think he was just being greedy, if that's a better way to say it. But too aggressive on those picks. He has to be smarter. He also finished by pointing the finger in the mirror. It's the first game of the season. You're going to have some hiccups. It starts with me. I've got to do much better. And then, he obviously emphasized room to grow. So I think that you appreciate that Bo Nix is taking accountability. That's, of course, what you would expect. That's what a team leader does. That's what a quarterback does. But against I don't know if it's fair to call them a bad Titans team, but they're not a good team yet. They had the number 1 pick for a reason. I feel like they might be trending up by the end of the year, but I'm not calling them a good team. They're not a good team. They're not a good team. And so because of that, I think that it's obviously unfair to say that Bo should have just completely destroyed them, but it is fair to say that Bo should have played better against a team that's a work in progress. And you can say, hey, we're all works in progress, right? We're all day to day. But I think that ultimately you are judged at your last performance. So first game of the year, first game jitters. If he wants to call it jitters, maybe Bo has more jitters than we thought. And look, Bo wasn't great early in the year. He wasn't great in his opener at Seattle on the road, the home opener with Sean Payton, by the way. I guess we should give a hat tip. I don't know if Sean Payton gave himself a game ball or if the Penners gave him a game ball for winning his first home opener as the Broncos head coach. The Broncos now 21-5 in their last 26 home openers at Empower Field at Mile High. They've always been good, really throughout time, but certainly in the modern era, really from the time John Elway got there on, so the last 40 plus years, they've been really good at home. 20-5 going into today, but both Vic Fangio, who I know lost at least one of those openers. I can't remember what Hackett did in his opener, but I definitely remember Sean Payton, and Sean even brought that up, that they were really good in general at home, but that he was bad. He's like, other than when I got here. So I appreciate that he was joking about the success in or lack of success in home openers, but now he is 1-2 in home openers, and you hope that for years to come now he will just continue to add to that. But 21-5 in your last 26, it's a good mark for the Broncos, and so you now look ahead not only to the Colts, but you got 2 games in a row on the road. Then you're going to come home for a Monday nighter against the Bengals, then 2 more on the road, one of those being East Coast to Philly, and then all the way to London. And they'll be in London all week. I know they're traveling from Philadelphia the night after, or the night of the game. That's an early kick, 1:00 Eastern. They'll be flying to London, and then they don't get the bye week after the London trip. A lot of times you'll see these international games that happen in October, mostly late September, October, and maybe into the first week of November with a bye week after that. Nope, Broncos flying home. They've got to add 3 more hours to, I don't know where the Giants will be the week before that. I guess I could look. But they'll be adding 3 more hours, obviously several time zones. It will be alumni weekend, Demaryius Thomas going into the Ring of Fame, and then they'll host the Giants. And will it be Russell Wilson by then? I don't know. But it will be a home game on the 19th. And then they also have a stretch in November where it's almost a full month before they're home. I think it's like 28 days in between home games. Brian, who's always quick with random facts. Fangio 1-2 in home openers. VJ, a perfect 2-0, and his defense today, again, was lights out. We've been going for about an hour, and I thought we might have time. We were maybe going to check in with a couple friends. That didn't necessarily come together completely, but we do have Bo Nix. So we are going to get to Bo here shortly, and that'll probably be about the way we wrap it up. I'll have some final thoughts and look ahead. But why don't we do this? Let's hear from number 10 himself and get a little more info and insight into what he thought about today's performance in his team's opening game win.
What's it like to have this defense to have your back?
It's the best feeling when you got a great defense. Just over and over, they just kind of took got us out of a jam and continue to do that throughout the game. The one that really sticks out is, they get the ball, down 1, and we get 2 sacks and get them out of field goal range. That'll change the game in a hurry and change the environment, get guys back into the game, and it was awesome to see different players making big plays.
Bo, I know going into the season, the idea that the running game would be a little different, maybe more balanced, but first half did not reflect that. Was that what they were doing, and how good was it to see some burst from the run game late to maybe kind of get the offense back in sync?
It was great. Those 2 backs at the end, they did a great job, JK and RJ. Explosive running. RJ had 1, and then JK just kind of, carried the ball there at the end. A couple times, got an explosive run on the touchdown. Great run, broke some tackles, and then just ate away the clock there at the end of the game. Thought it was really good. Everybody in the stadium knew we were running it there at the end, and we just did a good job of getting a hat on a hat, making some guys miss, and moving the ball and taking some clock.
Why was it out of sync early, the offense, that first half? Why do you think you guys were out of sync?
I don't know if we necessarily were. I'll have to go back and look. I know we didn't get points, but I don't necessarily say it's out of sync. First drive, we go down the field, and then that penalty got us back behind the chains. It's got to settle for a field goal. But when the first drive goes down like that and gets points, I don't think that's out of sync.
Bo, you talked about the end of the game. Can you take us through that 4th and 8 where you threw it up to Marvin Mims? First, the decision of Sean to go for it there and put that confidence in you, and then just take us through what happened on that play.
Felt like we had a good play. We were going to max protect it. We knew they were going to be in zero. We kind of had that play for a situation like zero, and they just brought the house. They brought everybody, and it's hard. You don't have enough guys to block them, but you hopefully have enough time to buy some time, and probably just a few inches higher, Marvin goes out there and catches it, and court was probably open as well. When I go back and look at it, he probably ran a good route, was open. It's just tough for them to cover crossers like that in a zero situation, and sometimes you hit them, sometimes you don't, and that when coach was aggressive, and next time we'll hit it.
Bo, on some of the turnovers you have, what are the thoughts on that? And then after some of those things happen, how does it go on the sideline with, Payton, Lombardi, Webb, and those guys talking to you?
Well, they, you don't ever want to throw interceptions, but when you do, as tough as it is, you just got to move on and respond with positive plays after that. And, both times I thought, I had decent vision, just, was it 50-50 that didn't go our way. Probably, shouldn't have thrown both of them. And, it's you live and you learn, and sometimes you can be a little too aggressive, and I was too aggressive. But, I just ultimately got to be smarter than that and take care of the football, especially with our defense, as well as they're going to play this year. I can't put them in bad spots.
Following that up, emotionally, when you have a fumble or a couple of interceptions, a day like this, is it any different for you this year than it would have been last year, or not? Harder on yourself, more philosophical about it, whatever?
I think I'm tougher on myself now because I, better, and I've had some experience, and I've had the, what not to do. But, every year in my career, I've thrown a pick probably. As much as I'm going to try in the future, I'm probably going to throw one every year. And so just got to limit them, and hopefully I'll stay at 2 for a while.
Bo, you haven't fumbled in a long time, though, or lost a fumble, maybe going all the way back to Auburn. Just what goes into being good at taking care of the ball in that facet? And is there anything specifically you can put your finger on in terms of the one today?
Well, I took 2 hands off the ball, and that's the cardinal sin as a quarterback, when you take 2 hands off the ball in the pocket against a good player who's going to be taught and going to have knowledge to just rip at the ball, and just happened quick, and I just should have had 2 hands on the ball in the pocket, but just can work on it, can get back to the technical basics, and just don't do it in the future.
Last one, Eric Guerilla.
Bo, the end of the first half, that sequence, how critical was that? And it kind of didn't seem like you guys were going to get the ball back, so having to mentally kind of get ready for that last possession and then converting. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, that was great. Situational football, complementary football. We thought we were going to have the full 2 minutes there to go down. They stop us. We had a punt, get them backed up. Our defense, I think, is 2 incompletions, a sack, and a timeout, so we get the ball back with a timeout left. And with great field position, Marv had a good return. So that's exactly how you want to draw it up if you have to give them the ball back with just under a minute. And when we got the ball back, it was just a few plays, and then Cortland with a big touchdown grab. Just an easy play, too high, 4 verts. He made a good move on the corner, got inside, and just made a great catch. Once I saw him go up in the air for it, I knew he was going to come down with it, and that's good confidence. That's what you want to see. But I thought our receivers did a really good job today. They were in and off the field, did what they were supposed to do. We're in the right spots, one in man, and that's what you want to see. Especially, we got a few younger guys, but guys that have played a lot of ball. So it's good to see them with the confidence and capability of executing 2-minute drives and, converting some third downs that I thought was really important. We were solid third down wise today, and, I'm got a lot to learn from, got a lot to grow from, which is good. It's first game of the season. You're going to have some hiccups. But, I just starts with me. I got to do a much better job, play better. Feel like I'm always going to say that. And then, they'll follow. They'll continue to play well. And then our defense is going to do that all year. So I'm excited. Thank you.
All right. So Bo Nix, as expected, takes that accountability. No real surprise there. And said that, hey, I'm going to throw another interception in my career. Said I have every season that I've played football. I went back and looked at his college numbers real quick. 6, 7, 3, 7, 3. 26 total in 5 college seasons. Last year, of course, 29 touchdowns, 12 picks. By the way, 113 to 26. That's nearly 5-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Last year, 29 to 12, and a bunch of those came early, right? Because we had 2 against Seattle just off the top that I can remember. It's not always going to look pretty, but law of averages are on both sides. Now, you heard Parker Gabriel from the Denver Post say it's been since going back to your Auburn days since you've lost a fumble. He had 2 fumbles last year, scooped them both back up. The team recovered both, so they weren't lost. And he said, you've got to protect the ball with 2 hands in the pocket, especially against good players. And he's right. And that's kind of one of the best things about Bo Nix is he doesn't take sacks. He doesn't turn the ball over at a really high rate. He doesn't produce a lot of negative plays, and he doesn't fumble the ball. He doesn't lose fumbles. And so I think that ultimately you're going to feel good about it over time. It was a tough one today, and you cannot be that sloppy next week against a better Colts team. And I don't think they will be. But again, 2.5-point favorite as it stands now. We'll see where the money moves. And sometimes public money should convince you need to go the other way. And so we will see how it all ultimately shakes out. But we've got plenty of football to cover all week long. Of course, as you know, we cover the Buffs top to bottom. They've got a short week. They're going to Houston. But we will have the Cold Tub with Jake Plummer and Nate Jackson tomorrow coming your way in the morning. Also, Nate Jackson and Eric Goodman will be talking Broncos. We know that Liv, who was at the game on Mood Swings, you will catch her reacting to the game as well. And then I'll be reacting throughout the week. We also got some other fun stuff in the works. So stay tuned to everything we're doing here at Guerilla Sports because we've got you covered all week long, up and down. Every time the Broncos talk, we will be there, including some special stuff that we're going to be a part of Tuesday with Pat Surtain Jr. That is going to be exclusive to Guerilla Sports. So it's going to be a lot of fun to cover this team throughout the year. We'll have you covered with live post games, and of course, we'll be on location. Hopefully at every game, at every practice, and everything in between. So don't go anywhere across all of your social channels. Make sure you're liking, subscribing to all of our podcasts, all of our shows on YouTube. And thanks for rolling with us. Upwards of almost 8,000 people checking in with us here because you were fired up about your Broncos. It was not their best game, but you know what? As Michael Malone, Denver resident, not currently a Denver coach, but Michael Malone likes to say it's a lot better to clean up mistakes after a win than after a loss. So we know the Broncos will be back in there tomorrow, cleaning things up. Know they'll have to be better in almost all facets, although the defense was outstanding. But they will have their hands full with a better Colts team in Indianapolis as they go on the road for the next 2 weeks at Indy, then at the Chargers a week after that. We saw what the Chargers did down in Brazil. So it's going to be a fun first start, but the Broncos have also wanted to start fast, something Sean Payton has not been able to do here as the Broncos head coach is get out of the gate. You went 0-4 in year 1. Last year you started 0-2. So you start 1-0 and you already are in better shape. How about this, Broncos country? The Kansas City Chiefs are in dead last in the division. And with the Raiders winning at New England and the Broncos winning and the Chargers winning, a 3-way tie for first place. But they are all ahead of the Chiefs. And the last time any team was ahead of the Chiefs in this division, maybe at any point, and I have to go back and double check this, but I'm not sure the Chiefs have been behind in the standings since the Broncos won the division and went to Super Bowl 50 a decade ago. And by the way, that Super Bowl 50 team will be honored here on October 19th when Demaryius Thomas goes in the Ring of Fame. Thank you again to Jesse. Thank you to Hannah. Thanks to Blake. Thanks to my man Jet sending us everything back from the stadium. And thank you for watching and listening and supporting everything we're doing here at Guerilla Sports. We will see you next time. I'm Brandon Krisztal.